Today, I'm excited to show you everything you need to create your own voice AI application. But what's the point? This application has the power to give you unimaginable insights over time into your own behavior and patterns without having to purposefully remember to track your daily habits, open an app on your phone or laptop, then open the document or application, then type out what you need. And it decreases screen time. Essentially, by infusing a voice AI agent into an application, we can make the user experience seamless. So let's get straight to checking out what this app is. So I've called it Momentum 2025 in the spirit of a journal application. Obviously, the key difference to this one is that you don't have to remember to fill it in. It's difficult to get lazy about it because it comes to you. You don't have to go to it and try to fit it into your schedule. You simply choose the time that works best for you, and it's going to call you each day on that time. And if you want to change the time, you just go up to your profile and change it. So this is one example of how AI voice agents can be implemented into applications in a real world situation. In this circumstance, I've provided a 30-day free trial for everyone. And then after that, they can choose to continue for a subscription. So let's head up here. I've already got an account. For the purposes of creating an application, I've put in a table of dummy data. So these answers here are going to be longer in a real world circumstance, but basically the phone call is 10 questions, 4 are metric questions and 6 are reflective questions about the day, learning and gratitude questions, and then focus on goals and what's happening tomorrow. So it's a great little conversation that helps people ground themselves, become self-reflective, and spend that time focusing on self-improvement. This application I've whipped up in a day. So I'll show you the tech stack that I used. I'll give you all of the information that I can. So over here, we've got the profile. There's a lot that can be done with this to make it look nicer, but this is what we've got in terms of functionality. When users actually sign up for the first time, they automatically complete this profile information. They'll enter in their preferred time for a phone call. This is where they can manage their subscription. And here you can always change where you are. If you're a traveler, you can change your time zone. You can change the preferred time as well. So I'm going to set this to 1 minute from now so you can see how this works. So now, any moment, I'm going to get a phone call. And while we're waiting, I will sign out. Okay, so let's sign up for a free trial. So create an account, sign up. So now I get a confirmation link. So I have to go and actually confirm this. And that is the confirmation link. And here's my phone call from my other profile.
I'm here to help you with your Momentum 2025 journal entry today. Let's begin when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Great. Let's get started. Your journal entry will be saved in the Momentum 25 app. Thank you for your reflection today. Goodbye.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye. It hangs up on the word bye. So that's pretty cool. I've actually been using my first version of this application, so I find it really helpful. And so I think it's a great use case to demonstrate to you guys how to create your own voice AI application. So before I do go on, I'll just show you a little bit more how this works. So once the user signs up, they land on this complete your profile page. They place their name in, they select their time zone. Time zones are the most difficult thing about arranging or organizing anything. Lately, I've learned. So then the preferred time, so let's say 1 o'clock p.m. And then we can just put a phone number in there. I'm not sure if that's enough numbers, but anyway, there we go. So once you've actually signed up, you don't need to do anything more in the app. You just wait for your phone call at 10 a.m. whenever the phone call is, and your entries are just going to land in here. So let's create this application. With so many amazing options to build AI automated solutions and agents, I carefully considered the cost, speed for development, and functionality. This slide shows the main platforms I seriously considered. So I'll briefly go through my decision-making for this build. For the voice agent, I wanted to give retail AI a go, though it doesn't support international phone numbers. I tried setting up SIP trunking without success. I chose Vapi because I've had experience creating a voice app with Vapi. I find Vapi simple, easy to use, and it's reliable. The next decision was the database, and there is an intricate weave between considering the database along with the front end. I basically had an option of Airtable and Softer, or Supabase and Lovable. They were the two systems that I was considering. I have a lot of experience with Airtable and I love the platform. And I have used Softer as well to create an application, which was functional and it works great. But because of the experience, I knew that it would take time and concentration for me to connect the calls to a schedule in Softer, and being able to choose the preferred time for the phone calls is the main feature of this application. I was able to create a scheduled call using a webhook in Supabase that triggers at the user's preferred time. And I'll explain more how I was able to create that function. Another big drawcard for Supabase compared to Airtable is the pricing. Supabase is free and it has free unlimited API calls. And the other thing comparing Airtable and Supabase was that I needed the tables to easily convert into an application fast and with robust security features. So overall, the combination of Supabase and Lovable was my choice. So then I chose N8N over Make.com because of the security options I'm looking to implement in the future, as well as the robust functionality in N8N. So this decision was more of a scaling and future option for me because Make.com does work just as well. And there's information on the HTTP request that you can use in Make.com. As always, I like to go over the costs involved in creating the project before we get started. The short story is it costs $40 to create this application. But to be more detailed, Supabase is free. N8N, you get a 14-day free trial. And after that, it's €20 per month. That also includes all of the subscription benefits of N8N, beyond just building this one automation. For Lovable, basically, you pay for credits per month. Each credit gives you a message to send to the AI coder. You own the code. This is the beauty of Lovable. And so if you finish the application, you can opt to cancel the subscription and take the code with you. So for perspective, I created this application in 46 messages, which falls under the lowest paid tier of Lovable, which is $20 a month. So basically, I created the code for this app with $20. And because I'm all about minimizing time and costs, I have provided all of the major prompts that I use to get this application up and running in the resource package, and you'll find that below in the description. It's 7 pages of prompts that you'll need for this application. In relation to the telephony provider, Twilio, you can try doing this with the free trial where you get $15 of free credit. However, there are restrictions with the free account in Twilio, and it's a bit of a nuisance. So I find it well worth upgrading the account where you need to verify your own identity and place $20 of credit. That will be more than enough to get you through testing. In relation to Vapi, it's pay per use and you get free credits when you sign up. So if you are new to voice AI agents, I have actually provided a detailed outline of how to create an AI agent in Vapi using the dashboard. That's up next. The purpose of this is so that you have the knowledge to create the API HTTP request that we use. You won't need to change it, but it is very handy to understand what is actually happening here. I will provide you with all the code necessary for this automatic outbound call request. So let's have a look at Vapi and all of the customization we can do within the platform. This is the Vapi platform. It's voice AI for developers. Even though it says for developers, I've got to say it is pretty easy to use. So I'll walk you through it. As you can see here, it can handle inbound calls. Examples of this are barbershop, dentist office, or any type of healthcare office, restaurants, insurance companies, websites for frequently asked questions. Then we've got outbound calls. So as you can see again, we've got telehealth check-ins, transportation, logistics, qualifying leads, debt collection. Then we have voice products, which is more along the lines of what I'm going to demonstrate today. Essentially, this is an outbound call that is automated within an application. And voice IoT, this seems to be something to do with installing it on hardware. That's beyond the realms of this tutorial. As you can see, it's a popular resource for voice AI agents. Vapi seems to be developing very fast. And if we look up here, we can see that they've just received $20 million in funding. So I expect that while they've been deploying rapidly, they're going to continue to. So I'm pretty keen to keep on using Vapi and testing it out and seeing how helpful this can be. So sign up, and once you're signed up, verify your email and log in. You'll find yourself on a dashboard like this. This is an overview of the metrics of all the calls you've done, how much you've spent. So this is just using the trial account with the $10 free credit. You can also go into more detail with call log details to see the transcripts, the analysis, messages, call cost, so all the JSON that's passed. But we'll go into that in more detail later. You can check your API logs and webhook logs. We won't be doing any webhooks in this build. So if we come over to platform and down to our assistants, we can actually create an assistant here. You can build one from their templates, or you can just start from scratch. And what we'll do here is we'll actually start from scratch. So I'm going to show you an inbound call for the app that we're creating and what it looks like if you were to fill it out on the dashboard. This is going to make it much easier when we come to actually fill in all the variables for the code that we will create, because it's essentially the same thing. It's just easier to visualize on the dashboard. So then we'll just go down to create an assistant. And there it is. I've actually already created one, so I'll go through that one. Now, this is the assistant I've just created. We're going to title it Momentum 2025 YouTube Demo. And if you want all of the settings and prompts in a concise document, I do have that. The link will be in the description below. What I will do is briefly just go over what each of these tabs are and the settings, so you become familiar with how these voice AI agents work. So up here, you can see this cost numerical bar and a latency numerical bar. So these are estimates, and they're divided into 4 sections. 5 sections if you change it from web mode to a telephony mode. I use the web mode for testing. And if we jump over to our model section here, we can see we have a few areas we can fill out. That is first message. I've got, hi, it's Momentum 2025 for your daily journal entry, something simple. This system prompt is a bit more refined, something I did work on, but basically it goes through the context, the role, a script. So we've got 4 metric questions, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your overall energy level today? Then I've got an instruction that the AI assistant must wait and let the user completely finish their answer. So this is just iterating that we really are focused on the user's verbalization of their answers. We've got how many hours of sleep did you get last night? On a scale of 1 to 10, how productive did you feel? How aligned were your actions today with your goals? And then we have the open questions. So that's, what was the highlight of your day? What challenged you today and how did you respond to it? What's one thing you learned or realized today? Who or what are you feeling grateful for? What progress did you make towards your goals, no matter how small? And what's one thing you'd like to focus on or accomplish tomorrow? And then we've just got a quick closing script and a couple of rules. You'll notice here I've instructed the assistant to say goodbye when the call has been completed, and that will help end the call with some cool settings that I've configured. So then on the right hand side we've got provider. So I'm using OpenAI. I find that this model works well. The 4O cluster model, because we don't need fast latency. If we kind of look up here and we change this to say the mini cluster, for example, it's going to be quicker and it's also going to be cheaper. However, it's only 1 cent cheaper and we don't need that faster latency. We need this assistant to stay on script and really understand what its purpose is. We don't need a knowledge base for this assistant. Temperature, we'll keep it low at 0.1. The max tokens is at default, and we select detect emotion. And the only other thing I wanted to show you was, I guess, the differences. If we were to use Anthropic, you can see if you use Claude Opus, the cost is a lot more. If we go down to Claude Sonnet, it comes back down. There's different latencies with each of the models. So this is really cool to be able to see how much each of the models are contributing to the cost and the latency. So it's the blue section here. These are settings that I like to use. The other thing is that I haven't provided an API key. You can add your provider credentials down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You go to provider credentials and you can add your API keys for 11 Labs, Azure, OpenAI, Anthropic. This is a brand new account and I'm going to see how it goes without any of the API keys. So we'll jump back over to our assistants. That's model section done. I do have the complete instructions for this inbound assistant, so you can get that in the description. So it goes through each of the tabs: transcriber, voice, functions, advanced tab settings. So yeah, get that if you can. So next up, we have got the transcriber model. So the transcriber converts the transcription from speech to text, and DeepGram is the default. I've found it to work really well, so I tend not to play around with transcription. I read that Gladia is also good for diarization, which is exactly what this is doing. Like I said, I've already used DeepGram and find it absolutely perfect, so I don't want to mess around with it. So yeah, so the settings here will be DeepGram, language English, the model will be Nova 2, and we can select background denoising. Okay, and then if we jump over to voice, this will initially be on Cartesia, which is great. It will be absolutely fine in this inbound agent. If you were to use different settings, so a different voice provider or a different model provider or transcriber provider, then the code for the outbound agent will need to be structured differently. So for the outbound agent that we will do soon, changing these settings would make a big difference to the code. So that's something to think about. But for your inbound agent, you can definitely play around with these settings yourself. So voice configuration, I have gone with 11 Labs, Will, and the 11 Turbo version 2.5. I've left this as it is. I haven't touched it. So over to the Functions tab, we've got the option to create tools, which we're not going to do here. But if you were, I'll just show you on the left side panel, you've got tools. You can create a new tool, connect it to Make or Go High Level or make a custom tool. And this is where you create it. Once you do create it, obviously I'm not going to create one, but once you do create it, it will end up in this drop down as a tool that you can select. Oh, actually, you can also just do it straight from there, but it's going to bring you down to the same tab. Pretty cool. There's so many things you can do, but that's for another video. So then predefined functions. Yes, we enable end call function. We don't need to enable dial keypad. Forwarding phone number, we don't need to do this in this circumstance, but this will allow you to transfer the call to a human agent if you want. So it's only applicable with phone calls, not on web calls, of course. And end call phrases. So we will just place goodbye in here. So basically what happens if the phrase goodbye is spoken, then the call will end. In fact, I don't think we need it. I've got other instructions that will end the call because we have this enable end call function. So that means that this assistant is able to end the call. And I've described here in the model how to end the call. So say goodbye when the call task has been completed, then end the call. So we'll try it like that. I think that should do the job. So we'll have no end call phrases here. And we'll leave custom functions alone. So now over to advanced, we leave the HIPAA compliance off. If you enable it, then recording switches off automatically. We want the recording so that we can do the analysis at the end. So we've got a start speaking plan. So this wait seconds is how long the assistant waits before speaking. I've set that to 0.4. Smart endpointing, we want this off so we can set these 3 values here. So on punctuation seconds, the minimum seconds to wait after the transcription ends with punctuation. So I've got 0.9. On no punctuation seconds, this is the minimum seconds to wait after the transcription ends without punctuation. That's going to relate to pauses, which are going to come up a fair bit in this type of a dialogue. You could probably even set that a little bit higher. On number seconds, this is the minimum seconds to wait after the transcription ends with a number. So if the last word that you say is a number, then it's going to wait half a second. I think half a second works well in this circumstance. Oh, and I just wanted to mention that start speaking plan and stop speaking plan really depend on the use case. And if you're creating an inbound receptionist, customer service agent, then you're going to have completely different settings for this stop speaking plan and start speaking plan. Stop speaking plan, number of words that the customer has to say before the assistant will stop talking. That's 1. Voice seconds is the seconds the customer has to speak before the assistant stops speaking. So we want these to be as low as possible without the possibility of the assistant stopping because they heard maybe some background noise. Then we've got back off seconds. So this is the seconds to wait before the assistant will start talking again after being interrupted. So in this use case, we want this to be very high. So I'll put this at 10. So we've got call timeout settings so silence timeout. So the way it's set now is if there's 30 seconds of no speaking, the assistant will end the call. Maximum duration is the maximum number of seconds that the call will last. So if the assistant hasn't said goodbye and the caller just keeps on speaking meaninglessly or just trolling, then it's going to cut off at 407 seconds, which is just under 8 minutes, or it's around 7 minutes, which is enough for a diary journal type entry. So server URL, you put your N8N webhook in here, and client messages, these are left at default. So this is a drop down, and I just didn't touch any of this from when I created it. It's at default. And server messages, I've only selected end of call report. Voicemail message, you can add something like this. Momentum 2025 called for your daily journal entry. You can call back on this number. End call message, so we're saying goodbye. So this is the message that the assistant will say if the call is ended. Idle messages. So this is a drop-down selection when you're creating an inbound assistant. And so there's only a few different types you can choose. When we're creating the outbound, we can customize this more. So I've just got a simple message of, are you still there? So basically this is if the user, so let's say I'm answering a question or how was your day today? And I'm just thinking on the phone, spending a lot of time thinking, not much time talking. If it hits 10 seconds, then this idle message will be created. And this here is the amount of idle messages that can be said before the assistant just shuts down the call. In this circumstance, we want that to be maximum at 10 and idle timeout to be 10 as well. Okay, so our next section is the analysis. So this is what's produced in the end of call report. So this is some analysis that we get to define for our end of call report. And then in these definitions, we can actually extract different parts of it to do what we want with the data that comes through. So for the summary prompt, I have, you are an expert note taker. Please extract each of the main points for each question that was asked by the caller. Oh yeah, and all of this information is in the call logs page as well, which is very helpful. So if I jump over here, the call logs might have shown you already. We can see the analysis. So we get the call logs. That's all the transcript, the analysis. So that here's a summary of each of the questions that were asked, the success evaluation, and then structured data for each of those questions. We have the JSON and we've got the call costs. So that entry was 35 cents. And we can see how much the speech to text model contributed to the cost, the LLM model, Vapi structured, how much the structured data cost. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's jump back over and we'll see how we can define all of this. Right, so in our assistant analysis. So you can just pause the video and type that in, or you can actually download the document that I've got. You can find ways to get that in the description. For our success evaluation, we are going to choose automatic rubric, leave the success evaluation request at default. And so this is really cool because what it does is it actually provides an evaluation of our call based on the summary prompt, and the automatic rubric automatically breaks down evaluation into several criteria, each with its own score. And that criteria will be broken down into sections based on this system prompt and the transcript. This is really helpful when you want to refine your assistant and when you're going through the testing phase. Structured data. If we read up here under this structured data, it's got, you can use data schemas and like just by itself. So you can ignore the structured prompt here and just let these descriptions define how this data will be extracted, or you can add this prompt to it, and that will just provide extra context for the AI when it's extracting this structured data. So I've got in here, you'll be given the transcript of a structured call and the system prompt of the AI participant. Please extract the user's answers to each of the questions in the call. And I have the description of how this data should be extracted. And you'll find that in the resource provided in the description below. Again, I've got a table set out that, has everything you need. So leave all of them as type string and do not mark them as required. And so then that's it. Well, let's test this out. I will just publish that. As you can see here, I'm in web mode, and now we can talk with the assistant.
Hi, it's Momentum 2025 for your daily journal entry.
Hi, how you going?
Thank you for asking. I'm here and ready to help you reflect on your day. Let's get started, shall we? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your overall energy level today?
I'd say a 6.
Thank you for sharing that. How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
I got 8.
Thank you for sharing. On a scale of 1 to 10, how productive did you feel today?
An 8.
Got it, thank you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how aligned were your actions today with your goals?
That's 8.
Thank you for that. Now, what was the highlight of your day?
Taking my puppy down to the park for a play and watching her play with another older dog.
That sounds like a wonderful moment. What challenged you today, and how did you respond to it?
Just the amount of work that I'm trying to get done, and I responded to it by just getting it done.
Thank you for sharing. What's one thing you learned or realized today? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm not quite sure what I've learned. I think just...
That's okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I might have to pass for now.
That's perfectly okay. Who or what are you feeling grateful for today?
My family and friends.
That's wonderful. What progress did you make toward your goals today, no matter how small?
So I've, just been chipping away at creating this YouTube video.
That's great progress. What's one thing you'd like to focus on or accomplish tomorrow?
I would like to focus on finishing the filming for this YouTube video.
Thank you for sharing your reflections today. You've highlighted some wonderful moments and made progress toward your goals. Your journal entry will be saved in the Momentum 2025 app. Have a great evening and goodbye.
Goodbye. And as you can see, it's ended the call. You might note that Vapi does have an outbound call option in their dashboard. However, With this option, you need to manually enter the phone numbers into the dashboard. In the spirit of scaling, time efficiency, and AI automations in general, I have opted for the custom HTTP request that I demonstrate here. To initiate the automatic outbound calls, we have to use the Create Call API in Vapi. For context, I've been using Make.com for 6+ months, thereabouts, and I don't have a tech background. But I chose N8N over Make in this circumstance to handle the outbound call for a number of reasons, but the main ones are the ease of integration between N8N and Supabase, which is the database I selected for this build, and also the versatility in functionality, security, and scaling options. Plus, I was actually quite surprised how easy it was to go from Make.com to N8N. So I've done all the heavy lifting for you here for this particular use case. I've provided the N8N template in the resource in the descriptions. I also have a document with the entire post request so that when you are ready to examine it and change it up to suit your own use case, it's in a clear, editable format, which is what I found helpful. So you might too. And also you can use this information to actually create this in Make.com. Here's all the information you need to initiate an outbound Vapi call from within either Make.com or N8N. So it's post request. This is the endpoint here. In N8N, you have an option to create the credentials. So I'll show you how to do that further on in the video. Whereas in Make.com, you will need to place your credentials in there. And that is basically XI-API-key. We get our API key from Vapi and place it in the value and the parameters. So content type, application/JSON. We're going to switch the toggle on for send body. The body content type is JSON. In N8N, we want it as an expression. And this is important. The difference between a fixed section and an expressions JSON section is that with the expression, we can change values up. So we need that in our circumstance because we want a different phone number to be passed through the request each time. And to ensure that the code allows to pass a different number each time, we need some JavaScript. So there will be in N8N a section up here with some JavaScript, very short line. It's in the template, so you don't need to copy paste it. It's right there. And then the other place that we have the JavaScript is just down here. We have a JavaScript line for the phone number. I'll just go through it now. Understanding the dashboard can help you to understand the outbound call. So we've got the assistant, so you can create your own name because we don't actually draw from the assistant we just made. We're just creating our own assistant with this code. So we are calling on a transcriber. And if you recall, we had a number of different providers we could choose from. And because we chose Deepgram, these are the settings that we're going to set for that. Now, if you change Deepgram, then these values here, model and language, there might be extra things that you'll need to complete, or there might be less. So if you change this and you don't configure the rest of what's underneath that as per the settings for that provider, then you'll break the code. I just advise that the first time you create this, keep it as is. It's also important to note that if you change the language, it's only going to change the language for transcriber. We still have the voice provider here. And if it doesn't have a specific voice that caters to a specific language, it's not going to do the job that you need it to do. So it's good to understand how each of the sections relate to one another. And the best way to do that is to go through the dashboard as I did. So this relates to the model tab that we saw. We've got the assistant system prompt here. And the difference is that it's placed in a manner that can be passed in JSON format. Because if you just press enter here instead of doing /n/n, then it's going to join these lines up and the provider doesn't read it as smoothly. If you put a comma in there that shouldn't be, then it just won't work. The way I got this was just by asking ChatGPT to transform the prompts that I did have in the dashboard into a format that can be passed in JSON. So that was pretty easy. Then I just inserted it here. So again, I just advise to keep it as is for the first time you create this. Then once you know what you want, change things one by one and run through it. That way, if you only make one change at a time and test it at each of the changes, you'll know what change breaks it if it breaks. So then we've got the provider, OpenAI, GPT model. The model is for Omni. You don't need to know or even change any of this. The only thing I would change is, from what I had, place the ID in here. And that will be the string of like numbers and letters for the voice. not the actual name of the voice. So here we've got all of this start speaking plan and stop speaking plan. We've got the first message, the end of call message, the analysis plan. We're not actually going to use that for the outbound call. We're actually going to extract the structured data using N8N. I'll show you where to get this webhook throughout the video. And then the last thing you'll need is to place your Twilio phone number, Twilio SID, Twilio auth token, and the customer phone number here. And that's the outbound call. So I know it's not good practice to have sensitive values like this in the body of a request. And that's actually the reason why I chose N8N, even though in the build that we're doing, I do use the same method. However, N8N does have an option on higher tiers to place these into an environment. So let's take a look at N8N. So here's N8N. As you can see, it's got a good reputation with a lot of popular organizations and companies. It has a very similar interface or functionality as Make.com, in that you can build with nodes or modules. And the other thing is that while you have the diagram interface, you can also do a lot of code. And honestly, I don't know code, but I have been using it a lot when I augment AI into my own processes. So I just ask AI to create code and it creates the code that I need. It's pretty amazing. That's why with the improvements in AI capabilities, the large language models just crushing it with code, I'm actually able to use platforms like this now. So that's a really cool thing about N8N. Yeah, let's just get started. So to start off with, you actually get 14 days free. I'll see you on the other side. So once you've logged into N8N, you'll find yourself in this dashboard here. So you've got the personal project and you've got the workflow, credentials. So this is where we can connect to our Airtable, Supabase, our Google Calendar, okay? And then you've got all of your previous executions. For automated outbound calls, we don't need to import the phone number into Vapi. To create the outbound call, we actually provide the information about the phone number in our HTTP request. So this brings us to the next important topic, which is the telephony provider. So I use Twilio for voice AI calls because it's quite robust in that it works on all platforms in different countries. I'll take you through this from the start because it can be a bit tricky. So go through the sign up process, and once you've completed the sign up details, select continue. Then you will need to verify your email, place your phone number in here. We'll also need to verify your phone number so you can hit the ground running. Copy the recovery code that you've been given, place it somewhere special, select continue, and it just takes a few moments while it's all setting up. And now you're in. How cool. So with the trial here, you get $15.50 to credit to start with. Go through these onboarding questions. Okay, awesome. So that's how you get into Twilio. Okay, so from here, we are actually able to get a trial phone number, which is pretty cool. It's an American number. It should still work. You can buy phone numbers from your own region though. So what we're going to do is take this account SID. So copy that. We're going to jump back over to N8N. We are going to create another credential, select Twilio, continue. So auth type, leave that as auth token. We're going to paste the account SID in there. And then we're going to copy the auth token and place that here. Select save and you can exit out of that. To get a new Twilio trial phone number to work for this use case, I actually verified the phone number, upgraded the account, which involved placing an ID and purchasing a minimum of $20 credit. And with that purchase, you can also turn off auto recharge. So you can just set aside a certain amount for the testing and creation of this app. So here in the N8N projects dashboard, we can just go up to create a new workflow in personal, and we've got a blank slate here. Now, if you can get this template by checking out the link in the description, I've got all of the resources plus the information that you will need in an editable format, so that if you choose to use Make.com, you can actually just transfer the information from the document into a Make scenario. So this is Supabase. It integrates seamlessly with Lovable. Lovable is an AI coding application. Supabase is free. Lovable has a minimal free tier. So the credits are based in Lovable on the number of messages you prompt with. So realistically, to create an application, you would need to get at least 1 month of the minimum subscription tier to create yourself a well-functioning app. So to make the most of each Lovable prompt, it is well worth knowing about Supabase and how it works. And then you can prompt with more contextual knowledge and save credits. Supabase is an open source Firebase alternative. There's a lot more that you can do with Supabase than what I'm doing with it. The storage is enormous, instant APIs, edge functions, which I'm still learning about, but I use them in this application. Real-time subscriptions. A lot of this is handled in Lovable. I'm going to show you something really cool in Supabase that blew my mind when I started. So let's sign in, sign up. So you can either sign in with an email or with GitHub. Okay, so let's take a little tour of Supabase. So with a free account, you can have 2 projects, and you can either have both of those projects in one organization, or you can split each of the projects up into 2 different organizations. So in my case here, you can see I have 3 paused projects here. I've chosen to pause these because I'm going to create a new project to demonstrate how to build this application. So on the left-hand side, you can see we've got the project section. So that's where we can see all of our projects. You can create a new organization up here, access tokens. So we can generate a new token here. Before we start afresh in Lovable, let's get to know some secrets and hacks about Supabase, the back end of our application. If you're already familiar with Supabase, this won't be as fascinating for you as it was for me. I'm new to this and I'm blown away by the superpowers I've just realized I have when I combine AI with the Supabase SQL editor. In this next section, I'm going to demonstrate how you might start creating the back end outside of Lovable, even though in the demonstration with Lovable, I do start the Supabase project from scratch. The purpose of this demonstration is to help ground you in the Supabase environment and make it easier for you to grasp what Lovable is actually doing when it is creating the application that we want. So let's jump into a new project and choose an organization for that. Create a password and select the region that relates to you. We have more security options here. Good to know that these are available. We can then create our new project. So it takes a little while for the project to set up. We have our project API keys, and this is different to our Supabase API key that I showed you previously. So we have an anon public API key and a service role secret API key. Then we have this project URL. So these are going to be important to access your API keys and all of the information that's important for connecting APIs. Just go over to project settings down here on the left-hand side and then go up to API. And that's where you're going to find your information. I'll be deleting this later. Now, while we're in project settings, let's have a quick look through this area. So we've got our project ID here. We can add a custom domain or transfer a project to another organization. So if we select database, you can see our tables, our functions, our extensions. We can enable a few more. So we're going to enable this one. We're going to enable PG Cron, and we're going to also enable another one. We can see we've got that PG Cron enabled now. The other way we can enable an extension is to paste a formula like this. So I've just run it. It said success, no rows returned. If I go down to database and then go down to extensions, I have this enabled. So we can delete this. You can handle these tasks in Lovable, but if you can do it here, why not? You can talk to Claude Sonnet 3.5 about what you want in your application in natural language. So access the document I've provided, copy the profiles table, then jump over to your SQL editor, paste that in there, then come down here and just select run. Now you can see we've got success, no rows returned because we don't have any records in there yet. If we jump over to table editor, we can see now we have a profiles table, and that has all of the columns we need. We have the user ID link, which is linked to our authentication table. So an authentication table in Supabase stores and manages users' authentication details such as emails, passwords, etc., and it enables secure login. It's automatically created for us. So if we jump over to our public schema again, so we've got public schema and we've got our auth schema. They're the 2 things that I needed to know for this build. So we've got our auth users table, which is created when people sign up, and then our public profiles table, which is created when a person fills out their profile settings. And they can update this. Policies is another important concept in this development. Lovable actually handles all the policies. So a policy is a key concept. It acts like a security guard for your table. So it controls who can access the data, what they can do with it, which rows they can see and modify. Okay, so the next table we're going to create is the momentum entries table. So this table is going to take each of the structured data items that we collected from Vapi, jump back to our SQL editor, paste that here, there, and then run. And now you can see we've had a success. Jump back over to table editor, and now we have our momentum entries table there. And that's all the tables we need. Okay. There's one other thing that I wanted to do before we start our Lovable application, and that is create a couple policies. So like I mentioned before, the policies provide the security and the rules for which rows can be seen by which users. We've got one for users can view their own profile, which makes sense, and users can update their own profile. So let's run that. All of that makes sense. Lovable will handle any other policy changes or updates or additions for us in a really smooth manner. So down here, we've got a success. So now we have these policies. And I think overall, the whole concept of all of that is just to show you that back here in SQL Editor, we can do things outside of Lovable. But now let's jump over to Lovable and actually see how cool this app is. As you can see, I've been playing around with it quite a lot. Everything that I have just done in Supabase, you can just do it in Lovable with natural language and simple language. I've been playing around with it for a couple of weeks now. It excels in front-end development, and back-end development is still maturing, but it does a much better job than I could ever do myself. The main reason why I actually started looking into this platform a couple of weeks ago was because you actually own your own code. GitHub, you can sync your code base to GitHub and edit in any code editor, export or publish your app instantly. So that idea is very cool. It's very quick. It does support other backends as well. You can integrate Airtable with Lovable. In fact, there are a lot of things you can integrate Lovable with. And there's some pretty cool features actually within the dashboard. There's a heap of templates that you can choose from. You can remix your templates as well. Here's the pricing. So on the free tier, you get 5 prompts. Unlikely that you're going to get that far with 5 prompts. To be honest, I tried to get as much as I could in SQL to develop the full backend for you guys, but I couldn't get the SQL editor to provide anything consistent that I knew would work straight away when I plugged Lovable into it. So I didn't want to provide any false hope or be misleading. So using Lovable is going to be a lot more of your own trial and error and logic and processing rather than just copying what I do exactly. In our application, we're going to be creating a cron job, which is implemented within an edge function. When we set up our cron job, we're scheduling an edge function, which is a small piece of code, to run at specific intervals. So it will be every minute. Inside the edge function, we also have some code that Lovable creates for us in really simple language. And this checks if the time matches a user's preferred time. If it does, it will trigger our HTTP request to our webhook URL. So the flow is the cron schedule triggers the edge function, and the edge function runs our code to check conditions. If the conditions are met, the edge function sends data to our webhook URL. This flow that I just explained is like a science. It either works or it doesn't. Similarly, email verification and authentication works in a logical flow. But when a user signs up, Supabase creates a new user record but marks it as unverified. It then sends an email containing a verification link to the user's email address. When the user clicks this link, Supabase checks if the token is valid and hasn't expired. If it's valid, it marks the user's account as verified in the database. After verification, when the user signs in with their email and password, Supabase checks these credentials against the database and confirms that the account is verified before granting access. This process ensures the email belongs to the user and adds security to your application. It too is like a science. What we know is not like a science is English or language. It's a different subject to a science. What I'm going to go through now is like the arts of application creation. I'm going to show you how I use prompts or language to create these flows. And so what you're going to find is not something to really follow step by step, but it's more of a guideline demonstrating how I did it and to give you ideas so that you can implement these flows into your application using Lovable. So to start off with, I'm going to get my prompt and paste it in there. So this prompt goes over the user flow and outlines a bit about the authentication process. I think that it will be a good starting prompt to set the scene. I also have some information about a table that we want to put in there. And the other important part about this prompt in particular is that I mention the purpose of this app. So I say, I need an application that will trigger a phone call at the time that each user sets. The user will set the time in their own time zone. Can you handle this? I will create a Supabase project for this. Here is what the user flow should be. And then I just go through the basic user flow. So it's landing page, which will lead to a sign up page with these questions that need input. And then once that's submitted, it goes to a user dashboard. So let's see how this initial prompt goes. I have tested Lovable. I've created this app about 5 times to create some prompts that will make it super easy for you to, 1, understand the direction of this, 2, create your application in as least amount of prompts as you can. It's looking good. It's got everything we need. Start free access, keeping it nice and simple. Sign in, sign up. What have we got here? And we've got this profile setup page with everything we're wanting. Of course, we can adapt this to make it more detailed, and a phone number. We can adapt that. So that's a great first start. Voice journal, exactly what this is. Now, what we really want to do is get our Supabase connected. If there's knowledge, context, or custom instructions you want to include in every edit in this project, set it below. So let's do that. Open up Manage Knowledge. Jump over to the document that I provide, and we are going to go down to the Design Overview prompt. So you can replace some of these values to make it suit what you want. And I've got these particular colors and accents that I want in this. All right, so copy that and jump back over to the knowledge base. Paste that, design guidelines. So this is a good starting point. Of course, you can add as much as you want in here in terms of design. You could add the pages. For example, you could add a dashboard page, but I do have a prompt coming up that will outline how the dashboard should look. So I'm going to save that. Create all necessary pages that the user flow can be executed seamlessly. Focus on creating premium and high-end feel with smooth animations and reactive elements that make the interface feel alive and engaging. Great. The next thing we need to do is create our Supabase project. So come over to Supabase. You can either add an organization if you haven't added one yet. So you want to connect Lovable to Supabase. I've already connected mine. So you just have to follow the bouncing balls with that through this interface. And you can actually ask Lovable exactly how you do it, and it will tell you step by step how to connect it. But I'm going to go here and select Create New Project. And we'll call this Momentum 2025 YouTube demo. Pop a password in there, select your region. There are these security options. We won't go into them here now. Create this new project. Okay, so here we have our project API keys. So we've got the anon public key, the service role secret. We have our URL for this project and this JWT secret, which I don't think we'll need that. Okay, so next we want to come back over to our Lovable app, go down to the organization you just created your project in, and then select connect to a project. And we want to just select that. So selected project is not active, so usually takes a moment. So we can come back here now and try it again. It's done. Connect. And now it's working in the background, connecting to Supabase, gathering the structure, tables, and security settings. So we don't even have any tables at the moment or security settings. I'm going to run through how this can be done in Lovable. It looks like you haven't created any tables yet. Before you deploy your app to production or use any real data, you need to review and set up the appropriate RLS policies. RLS is row level security, and this helps ensure that users can only see the data that's relating to their own profile. So Lovable can help with that. So what's next? Just keep building. For any questions, just ask. If you plan to have users log in, we highly recommend setting up authentication before adding any other features. I will get to authentication ASAP. However, the first functionality I will need to ensure work is to set up the phone call, which will be set up via a webhook in N8N. The N8N webhook must trigger at the time that each user sets, that is their preferred time in their time zone. I need to make sure that the user's UUID and their phone number in E164 format. So that's the international code format. So it's a unique number worldwide is passed in the webhook request. And I just added each day so that it's clear. Okay, how can we do this? So this is the table that I have mentioned up the top here, and it's ensuring that it's in the proper E164 format. So that's awesome. Third time, not null, created. Awesome. It's looking good. We can just come here and select apply. And you'll note here it's also creating an edge function to handle the webhook calls. It's setting up a cron job to trigger the function at the appropriate times, implementing necessary front-end components. Let's apply the changes. Okay, so would you like me to create the edge function? Yes, update all of this. Great. Please start with the next logical step to ensure this primed webhook trigger initiates each day at the user's preferred time, considering the time zone day. The reason I've done this is because out of the 5 apps that I've built in Lovable related to this type of function, I figured as the app gets bigger, it's more difficult to integrate more things without it contradicting other parts of the application. So I wanted to do this part before I do the authentication part. Okay, so the most logical next step is query the profile table to get the user's preferred times, convert times to the correct time zone, make the webhook call to N8N with the required data. Before we do this, we need to get the webhook and we need to set up a cron job to trigger this function at regular intervals. So let's get the webhook. This is the flow. As you can see up here, this is all of the different types of HTTP requests that I've created, different ways to extract the information from the phone call. This here is what I've found works the best, most consistent, and is actually really simple as well. So I'm excited to show you guys this one. So I've just imported this. I'll give you the template for it, and I'm just going to create a new workflow. I can save that. That's fine. So grab the template. In the descriptions, you'll find what you need to do to get that. And once you've got it, download it. And then to open that up here, you just need to go over to import from file. Here we go. And open it up. I'll delete all of this. Don't need it. Okay. So our first workflow. So let's start by naming this. It'll be demo moment 2025. Great. Now let's have a look here. This is already all set up for you. So I'll quickly run through how to test a webhook in N8N or in Make as well. But this is it's a bit of a hack. Is Postman. That's this application here. So it's web.postman.co. I'll have a link in the description. Just paste your test webhook there. Now you can tell if it's test or production. This is the one that will be initiated or called when your N8N scenario or instance, whatever this is called, project, whenever that is active. So this green button up here, when that's turned on, then it's going to use the production URL. And when it's not turned on, it'll be using the test URL. So copy that just by clicking it, jump over to Postman and paste that in there. Then we are going to test this by writing phone and place an international number in there. Oh no, this is just a test, so it doesn't matter too much. Okay, and to test it, we just need to select listen for test, jump back over to Postman and select send. You can see down here, we have this 200. Okay, it's sent. So jump over here and we can see that information has been sent. We can see the information here. Before we go any further in Lovable, let's just get this outbound call working. So just double click on the module. We've got a post request. So this is the endpoint. We're going to use generic credential type. So select that. Header is the auth type. I think you're actually going to create a new credential. And this is going to be simple. Just label it something like Vapi Momentum 2025. And then jump over to your Vapi dashboard. Go down to this green button down the bottom left corner and select API keys. Then create a private key and copy that. Then back in N8N credentials, you're just going to paste that API key here and save it. I've already got mine set up. We're not querying any parameters. We're sending this header and we're using the fields below. So it's a fixed expression. We've got content-type, exactly like that. Content application / JSON. And we've got send body and we just select JSON here. So down here, sending an expression, here is the content. So this is nearly fixed. Like we're nearly not touching anything. The only thing we are touching is down the very bottom, we actually need to place our Twilio phone number that we created just earlier, our account SID, and the Twilio auth token. And I understand this isn't best practice. So if we go down here and select these 3 dots and select settings, come over to the left-hand side and you can see that we have an option to create environments. It's my understanding that you could actually put the Twilio number, the SID and auth token in here in an environment and then refer to the environment in the body. So you don't have to actually put it inside of the actual body, but that's available on the enterprise plan. So that's something to think about when you're creating your request. And then down here, we have some JavaScript. So if I test this workflow I've sent that, we can have a look at this table over here. And what we want is for this phone number that is in our body, we want that. So that's going to be referred to here. So once you've actually filled out your details, I'll test that step and there's something wrong. Let's have a look. So the country is not coming through properly. Oh, because I don't have the right number. I don't even have a number in there. Okay. You'll have to also make sure that you put a real phone number in there for the phone call to actually work. So we'll need to test the workflow, then head over to Postman and send a request with a working phone number. And here we go. Hello.
With your Momentum 2025 journal entry today. Let's begin with...
So the webhook's working brilliantly. We're going to keep it in test mode and remember that for the future, for when we do actually activate this application. So we've got the test webhook in here. So we're going to provide the webhook. So here is the webhook. It is a test one for now. So now it's asking us about setting up the cron job, which I think the easiest way for me to understand what a cron job is I think chronological. So this is about the time intervals. So it's about setting it up, the function at regular intervals. So I'm going to address this question. Would you like me to proceed with setting up the cron job? So I've just said, please set up the cron job, do it in 1 minute windows. Please ensure that all of the time formats are consistent throughout the application so that we can ensure that the time is easily and properly translated and understood in each step of this task. Let's go. So first we need to enable the required post GRE SQL extensions and set up the cron job to trigger our edge function every minute. Let's do this with SQL first, and we'll just say apply changes. So it's set up the cron job. Now it's going to proceed with updating the code to ensure consistent time handling. It's just asking me, is that what I want? I say, yes, please. I need consistent time handling throughout the application to ensure function runs smoothly. Just waiting. So it's installing this package, date-fns-teaser. Brilliant. Okay, let's go sign up. And as you can see, the sign up page isn't really working properly. We can get into the dashboard, but we're not really even signed in. And if we jump over to our Supabase and look at our table, we can see that we don't have a user. So we need to fix that. But before we do, let's just jump back down to here. Look at our edge function. So this is our trigger that will call at the preferred time. So we can see that it's being analyzed in some capacity, but because we don't actually even have a profile, it is all meaningless. We need to get our actual user flow working the way it should be. And the way I approach this is if I go back down to index page, so that's our landing page, we basically have one call to action. That is to get free access to this voice journaling application. So here we've got start free access. That technically leads us to the sign up page, but it's not displaying anything. So let's just mention that here. When I select start free access button on the dashboard, I get taken to a sign up page, but it is blank, so that's a problem. Then if we jump back over to our index page again and we jump to actual sign up, we're going to have the same thing. So when I select start free access button and the sign up button, and then we want to check what happens when we select sign in. When I go to this profile setup page from browser, it takes me to a good page setup, but when I select complete setup, it doesn't actually complete. Okay, let's set up the user authentication. So I'm just going to copy and paste this bit down here. Copy. Here is the implementation flow. So the implementation flow is sign up page with email, password, and basic profile info. Sign in page with authentication and profile check. So that's going to be an email verification. Protected profile setup page that requires authentication. That's the automatic redirection based on the authentication state. So if you verify the email, then when you sign in, you're going to go straight to the redirect page, which will be the dashboard. It says that for development purposes, you should disable email verification. I'm not going to do that because I've got away with not doing that so far, and I find that works well. So let's go here and we'll create an account. So sign up. So you'll have to put a real email address in there and sign up. So now, okay, it said failed to execute JSON on response body string. Then show logs, same thing. Okay, I know what's going on. So upon you sign on, I only want an or row create the or UID table that is set up by default in Supabase. The profile row should not be created until the user actually selects submit on the... So you kind of get the idea here. We're just going through and methodically making sure that each button, each input is going to the right place. And start from the landing page and work our way up through that application. Yes, please proceed with the changes. Hey, now let's try to sign up. And it worked. So let's jump over to our table. And there we got a verification email. So that's here. So I just select confirm your email. And this won't actually work. We have to do something else. Actually, I'll jump back to the prompts. So I've got a post Supabase connection prompt. So that's just this one here. Copy this, paste this over here. So please, I need the Lovable project URL and redirect URL. And could you please change the name of this application Moment 2020? So while we're waiting for that response, if we jump over to our table, so we've got profile table, there shouldn't be anything in here yet, and there's not. But if I go up to schema, and the only table that matters to us down here is this users table. We should have one user in there. That's the one we just signed in with. And you can see here, we've got our auth table ID, or it's called a UU ID. So here you can see we've been given our Lovable project URL. So we're going to copy that. And then we're going to jump over to our Supabase. We will go down to authentication on the left side panel here and head over to URL configuration. We're going to paste that here and save it. So that's the site URL. Then we're going to copy the redirect URL and paste that down here. So we've got to add a URL, paste it, and select save. Now, if we go back over to our confirm email, hopefully this will link to, awesome. So now we've verified it and that links to our application. Brilliant. So now that's awesome. It's going to the complete profile. So we're on the profile setup page. When you're creating your app, you can go through and make these drop-down selections, pass information exactly in the format that's needed. For now, I'm not going to do that. So let's create a time. So it's at 5:46 p.m. All right, awesome. So now the information isn't really being placed in our dashboard. What we actually need now is to see if the webhook works. Let's actually go back over. We want to go back to the public schema, select on profiles, and let's just change this to a time to like 2 minutes from now. In the meantime, I'll jump over to my prompts and we'll get this prompt. I need the dashboard to have the following content and it must be connected to my Supabase momentum entries table. But we haven't even created that table yet, so we will need to do that. So let's get that table. Okay. I need another table with columns as follows. Paste. Okay, our cron job is working. It just hasn't been deployed. Okay, so I could tell that this was working because when I go to the edge functions and I select the edge function, we can see it's being activated each minute. So ID string, that should be automatically created by Supabase. A linked value from warp table with columns as follows, and include all the necessary RLS policies. You've got energy level, and we'll make that a number. Sleep duration is number, productivity will be a number, and goal focus will be a number. And the rest are strings. This is a time value. Well, we'll leave it as a string. Phone is a string, the phone number. So the reason I've got two different values here is because I probably don't need it anymore, but in one of the applications, I had troubles getting the phone number so that it actually links the ID here, because this is really important. The concept that the authenticated user identification and their phone number are linked, that's what makes all of these values appear in their application when they view it. Because if this doesn't import properly, and neither does this, or insert properly into the table, then it's like it's not going to work at all. So what was happening was I was getting the phone number to be imported into a column, but I couldn't get it as the linked phone number to the profile table. Okay, so I've just said I need another table with columns as follows. This must be a linked phone number to the user UID, the user's phone value, and the profile table. Cool. So these values will be displayed in the user dashboard. Please adhere to the following page structure and the design guideline from the knowledge base. And then we'll go and paste this in here. We'll paste that there. So we've called this table momentum entries. I'll just put down the bottom here. It is imperative that if the user does not yet have any entries, you must then simply have empty page display on the dashboard page. Cool. All right, let's see how this one goes. It's a pretty long prompt, but it's actually relatively simple. I've got a good feeling it's going to be able to, well, it will create a table, and I think it will be able to create the dashboard I'm looking for. So let's go. Okay, so users can alter their table. They can view their own entries, they can insert their own entries, they can update their own entries, and they can delete their own entries. Well, let's see. Okay, so we'll apply the changes. Have a look at this. Failed to run SQL, just go try to fix, apply change. The backend's done, so now it's implementing the dashboard and functionality. Would you like me to implement it? Yes, please, and thank you. So we should be seeing a more refined user interface. Okay, I've implemented a comprehensive dashboard that displays all of this. Let's see it then. We can sign in, so we don't have anything in there yet because we haven't actually finished any journal entries. It's also got all of our profile information up here, and we can fix that up. That's actually just the current time. Okay, so before we go on, let's ask for the profile edit page. So can you please add a profile settings button in the header on the dashboard page? This profile settings button must link the user to a form or a page where the user can update their profile settings details, including the name, phone number, time zone, and preferred time. You must also change the profile setup page time zone input. It must be set out in IANA time zone format, and it must be in a drop-down selection. There must be a time zone represented for each city around the world. Okay. E.G. Australia, Brisbane, etc. You must also do the same for the phone number input. It must have a country code input for the international code. There must be a space for users to input the remainder of their phone number in E164 format. The phone number must be passed into Supabase in that same format. So pretty simple. And I'll copy that, then paste that here. I'll also say, please go to the style/theme provided in the knowledge base and the accent, colors, and gradient requested knowledge base. How many prompts am I up to? So I've done 22 messages so far. So I noticed that this request does this. I've implemented all the requested changes. Let's sign in. Cool. Let's check this out. Settings. Nice. All right, so profile settings. So let's set this up. Australia, we've got all of our different time zones, and we can select preferred time here. I'm going to go 7:03. So this is wrong. Next call. That's actually the time now. Yeah, I'll have to bring that up. That's a nice looking setting button. So if we go over to our public schema, we can see down here that it has updated the time zone, but it's updated the preferred time as the now time. Go back and see if I update this. Okay, so it should call. Technically, it should call any moment. Let's just say, trying to fix that. Okay, please ensure the next call section in the dashboard is actually reflecting the next call that pertains to the user's preferred time. At the moment, the next call section appears to display current time. Oh, okay, I've made the improvements and fixed the call calculation in the dashboard, added proper time zone handling. Wow, okay, great. So now we've got the next call actually representing the next call that's going to be triggered and received by the user. So that's great. Okay, we're going to put this into active mode. So got it. We're just going to copy this, put it into production URL, copy that, go back to Canvas, open initiate Vapi call, and scroll down to where it's got server URL. You just want to paste that in here like this. So paste that and then go back. I'm going to save this. So that's turned on now. So we need to go back and paste this production URL into Lovable and just say, I forgot to provide the production URL web. Please insert this where it needs to go, or provide with the place where it needs to. Please, this is very important. Handle this task with meticulous care and actionism. Paste the webhook and press enter. Awesome. So it's updated the edge function. We can go have a look at that here. Awesome. We can see that here is triggering as it should. So let's go and we'll just change preferred time to 35. Yeah, and we're going to wait 1 minute, and hopefully our webhook is going to pick up the fact that the time matches our preferred time in our time zone, and we're going to receive a call. And in the meantime, I'm going to have a look at the prompts that I have already set up. So I've done this one. We've got this dashboard metric graph prompt. It goes, I would like a container that creates a graph with time on the x-axis, a 2-week period, and number on the y. It is imperative that this graph is dynamic, separate from the container above, and the user can scroll left or right through the chronology. Please, I will also need the color scheme for this graph to be in Pascal colors. Graph lines must be bold. Okay, so this design theme, this is something I want to keep in line with the design theme style. And we can copy that, paste that here. And while we didn't get our webhook to really run, obviously we'll troubleshoot through that in a moment. We will jump back over here and I'll just apply this design theme. You can play around with this as much as you like, really. Other thing you can do with inside of Lovable is like select, say this, for example, might just say, please apply the style guidelines and accent colors to this section. I would also the containers to pop and the headers elicit more interest. Let's see how it interprets that. Nice. So I've just asked for a bit of an update on this landing page, just to have it a bit cleaner, less of the color with the gradient. More like this. So that's cool. You could play with that for quite a while, I think. And you'll notice that the color is going back and forth like that. So I specifically asked for that. Okay, so let's see if the start free access, yep, that's working. Let's see if the sign up page, let's go back to our home. We can say sign up, brings us to the right place, and sign in brings us to the right place. Brilliant. Okay, sign in. So what we need from here is our preferred time to actually work. It's not working, although we do have the edge function working, which is great. We just haven't yet got it hooked up to our actual N8N workflow. So let's go 8:19 p.m. Update profile. It's updated successfully. If we jump over to our edge functions and refresh that, we'll see that these have been working consistently. So this is what happens within one rotation. Like each minute this happens. Just checking for journal calls. Hey, it's working. Hello.
Hello, I'm here to help you with your Momentum 2025 journal entry today. Your journal entry will be saved in the Momentum 25 app. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.
Goodbye. Awesome. That's brilliant. So it's working. Now we just need to get the data saved by our webhook, which actually it should have done now. So we'll need to do a test over here in our N8N. So we'll switch this back to test mode and we'll get this running. It'll flow back to our Supabase and land in our dashboard. If you've found that your call isn't actually going through and you've set the time and that time passes and you just don't know what's going on, I'm going to show you something that I had to troubleshoot through a couple of times. And you can see here, I've asked for this phone call to be at 11:15 a.m. And if I jump over to the edge functions, we know that they've been working. If we jump over to the side, we've got on the side here, edge functions, and this is our edge function. We go over to logs and just scroll down. So the preferred time is 11:15. And if I go down to 11:15, we can see here, user's preferred time, 11:15. And then the current time, it was checked at 11:15, but it was 2 seconds after the exact turn of the minute. Our function is expecting it to be to the second. And we need a 1 minute window so that it checks for that entire minute rather than that second. So that's something to make sure that is in this edge function. So let's jump back over to Lovable. So what I did, I screenshotted the log, the edge function log, and I went into Lovable and I simply said, please check this image out. As you can see, the preferred time is updated using the app and the edge function checked for that time. It also checked what the current time is, but it failed to create a call. Can you please explain to me what my edge function is actually doing and why it is not actually triggering my call? And it explained that it's because it's not to the exact second. So now let's go have a look at our edge functions. We can refresh the log and we can see that now the set time is 11:15. So it's checking for the window between 11:14 and 11:16. That's great. We need to toggle this. We need to place this test webhook into Lovable in the edge function. And we need to place the test webhook into here. So that's this test webhook. We'll test that. make sure that we update the phone number. Update the preferred time again. 40. No, update. I'm going to jump over to N8N and it is waiting for the trigger. Hello.
I'm here to help you with your Momentum 2025 journal entry today. Let's begin.
The video is posted.
Thank you for your reflection. Journal entry will be saved in the Momentum 25 app. Have a wonderful evening and goodbye.
Goodbye. I've made sure that this is waiting for the trigger again so that this data comes through. It's listening. So great. So now we've got the information in here and we can look into getting it back into our application. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here is actually pin this data. And what that's going to do is make sure that this data is now always accessible from here until we unpin it. Once we put this project back into production, we'll need to unpin it. Otherwise, when this project runs and this webhook is triggered, it's going to pass the pinned data rather than new data. But while we're actually creating this, it's very handy to have this pinned data in there. Then we don't even need to go back into Postman and keep on re-triggering it. We just continuously have this information here. But I have been caught out multiple times trying to figure out why my workflow isn't working, only to find that I have left it in a pinned mode. Okay, so we have the entire JSON structure here. The main thing that we're looking to get from this is the transcript. So the data has been passed into our webhook. Now we have this super cool module. And if we zoom in on this a little bit, so this information extractor is actually an alternative to the structured data because of the fact that we are using JavaScript to get a phone number into our HTTP request. We can't actually use the structured data because there's another formula inside of our structured data section. You don't need to worry about that too much. Basically, all I'm saying here is that this part here replaces the structured data section. So we're going to create the structured data in this section, and it is going to be processed using the Anthropic model of Claude Sonnet 3.5. I've used this model specifically because I know that it can handle this. So all we needed to do to connect it to Anthropic is get an API key from Anthropic and create a new credential, place your API key in there. You can use ChatGPT 4.0. I believe it will be able to handle this. And of course, you can also use an Omni 1 model as well. So you've got a lot of options with great LLMs that can handle this. And I know that it can handle this because this is a pretty simple prompt. So here is the prompt up here, and we have it as an expression because the transcript is going to be different for every time this workflow runs. And then you can see the schema type. We have these different options here. We're generating JSON from the example up here. And then I have an example, just an example of how I'd like this information to be processed, which will then define how I place it into Supabase. So let's look at the crux of this node, and that is the prompt. I'm going to delete that because that's not applicable. So up in this text field, we have it set as an expression. And the reason it's an expression is because we have a couple of variables. So this area in the white, that's fixed, but we need the transcript to be different every time. We need the phone number to be different every time. And the call time is obviously going to be different. So to get the transcript into this prompt, we just need to drag the transcript over into this section here. And it's probably easier to do it from here. If I go find and then transcript, it just comes up straight away here. But when it's in schema mode and I type transcript, it's not actually going to pick up that word from here, from inside of these little kind of boxes. But again, if I jump over to table and I type transcript, you can see that it came up. And all you need to do is drag that up here and be placed in there. The next thing we need to place in there is going to be the phone number. To find where exactly that is in this large table, you just, again, go find and then just place like the prefix of the country code. It's going to come up straight away like this. And I want to show you, if I place this phone number here in there like that, I can check if that worked by going down to the result. If I open this up here, we can see the result over here. So this is the result of this expression when these numbers here have been inputted into it. And so you can see here, I got that phone number. If I go down the bottom here, I can see, and I'll make sure that this is blanked out. I have the actual phone number here. And that's how I know it's working. The moral of this part of the video is make sure that you check that these are variables. JavaScript, as you can see, anything inside double curly brackets is JavaScript. So you want to check that the JavaScript is actually working. And it's pretty cool that you can do that inside of N8N. Okay, so the next thing we're going to input is the time, and that's actually up the top. Again, you can just go back to this part of the module and write timestamp, and it's going to come up right there. So the interesting part about this is that it's in Unix seconds, which is basically the best way I can explain it or understand it. Back in the 70s, I think, there was a moment in time and they said Unix time starts from here. It's 0 seconds. And then every second that's passes since then, it adds a second to Unix time, which means absolutely nothing to me when I see a string like this, but it's a reference point. And we can use formulas to transform or translate that into a time that we understand, and then also in the time zone that we're at. So that's why having reference point like that is really cool. But it's just, when we get it, we need to know that that's the time that we're looking at, and we can do something with that, even though it looks scary. Okay, so hopefully that's explained it all. I'm going to test this. Okay, node executed properly. This is the output that we've got, which is great. Now, if we jump over to our Supabase node, so we can see here on the left that we have actually got our data from the last module. Now we're going to create a new credential. It's simply going to be our URL from our project, and then we go to API and we can copy this. Jump back over to here and just paste that in there. And we're going to go back to our project settings, API settings window, and we're going to copy this service role secret and then paste that in here, and that saves successfully. So resource is its row. Operation is create. So we're creating a row in our Supabase table. The table ID or name is momentum entry. So make sure that that's exact. It should come up as an option. You can see here, I can place a row in profiles, but that's not what we're doing right now. And we'll just notice that everything here so far is fixed. Data to send is define below for each column. So we're going to make sure that we place the right output for each column. Because we've defined the table here, we have all of the columns for that table down here. And if you remember, we defined this table in Lovable when we asked for it to create our momentum entries. I've got the prompt for that in the resources in the description. And it was pretty awesome in that it created these 4 variables or columns as integers, and the sleep duration is a number. So they're all expected to be a number. And then we have the highlight, challenge, realization, appreciation, and goal progress. And tomorrow all is strings. Then we have call time. Make sure that this is a string. I did have to change that. It was originally a timestamp. The Unix seconds isn't going to translate into a timestamp. So you need to make sure that call time is a string, phone is a string, and phone number is a string. So just obviously you don't change that in N8N. Go to your table, momentum entries, and to change anything, if you notice that it's not the way that I've just shown you, just come back here and, for example, call time. To change that, select this little caret here, caret tip, edit column, go to text type, and let's say it was in timestamp. We're going to now change it to plain old text and save that. So the next thing we're going to have a little bit of difficulties with is the linked user ID. I don't believe this is going to work. So what I'm going to do is test this module or node, then we'll troubleshoot it and make sure that it's working correctly. So we're going to test that step, and we can see here that we do have an error, and it's got to do with violates and not null constraint. So we can just copy this and ask the AI assistant here. Actually, I think the best way to go about this is actually to go into Lovable, so it's going to have more context of what's going on here. So I'm going to say, okay, so I've just said, I just attempted to get this data, which is in table format here, into my Supabase momentum entries table, but I got this error, and I pasted the error. The error indicates that the user ID column is not being populated when inserting the data. But the thing is, we actually don't have the user ID to put in there. Okay, so I just said, actually, we don't have the UUID to place in there with this row. What we do have is a unique phone number that can infer the UUID for the call data that has just come through. How can we make sure that our UUID is updated in this table immediately as the phone number is entered? So this is the cool part. This is where I know that this is on the right track. So what we're doing here is creating another trigger that will automatically update the user ID based on the phone number by looking it up in the profiles table. Well, let's see if this tactic works. After this, we're pretty much done. We can insert a few dummy data rows to see what it will look like as a whole. as the data accumulates in the application. The migration is being applied. It's been successful. So let's test this. Going back to N8N, I do need to actually put this back to phone number and tomorrow goal progress. Before we test this, what we're going to do is make sure that the phone number field has the phone number entered in there. So we can test this step. Node executed successfully. We can jump back over to our Momentum app. And now this was imported properly. So then back in our dashboard, we know that the information is coming through. So our back end is working brilliant. All we need to do now is tidy up the front end. So let's actually enter some more data in this application. I'm actually going to delete all of the data that I have in the app, and I'm going to create a new user with a set of dummy data. And that will give us good data to have in there and test out our interface while we just do all of the finishing touches. So to delete the authenticated users, we just type this formula in our SQL editor, and that is going to delete the referenced user. So we've deleted one of the rows. If we jump back over to our auth table, we're going to delete the other users that I've put in here. I mean, you can leave the data in there if you want, but I want a clean slate. I want to delete all the data I've accumulated through the creation of the application. And if I go back to table editor, go to my public schema, go to momentum entries, we can actually just delete rows easily from these sections. It's just the authentication rows that I found difficult to delete. So now I have a blank slate. I'm going to create another user. So I'm going to go sign up, and sign up is successful. I'm going to go sign in, and I have this confirmation email. So now I have a confirmation email I just entered into. We can fix this up later. The authentication has kind of gone a little funky throughout the creation of this. It doesn't matter, honestly. At the end of the day, we can troubleshoot through that. I've already shown the process of what that is, so hopefully you understand the concept of authentication and just a bit of the logic that's behind it. If I jump over to my auth schema and users table, I've got my new clean user in there with my email, and it's stating that it's authenticated. So that's fine for testing still. Let's sign in and we can complete the profile. So in this case, I'm going to put my dummy phone number in here, which matches the dummy data that I've got complete setup. Great. Now, copy this dummy data, which the most important aspect of this is that it has this dummy phone number in it, which is created to link the authenticated user identity in the Momentum entries table. I can go over to the SQL editor and replace this with all of that and select run. And if we jump back over to our public schema and we check our Momentum entries, we have all of our dummy data in there. So let's finally jump back over to our actual application. And here we've got some metrics. We want to change this because this isn't what I've asked for. I'm going to design overview. I'm going to copy this, and then we can paste this here and run this. So that's the dashboard design prompt. Cool. All right, there we go. So we can scroll through each of the entries. That's great. And now let's jump back over to the prompts, and we'll paste the dashboard metric graph prompt in here. And we're so close to really tidying up and finishing this app. Let's have a look up here. We can see we've done 42 messages. And while we're waiting for that to come through, let's go back to our N8N workflow. We're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to get our actual production URL from here and copy that. We'll jump back over to our initiate Vapi call post request and make sure that that production URL is inserted into this HTTP request down here. So the only difference really for this is this section here. So we can actually just delete that and it should work, because if I paste this whole thing in here, it's the exact same. So that's cool. All right. So we've got this webhook in here. So we'll need to place the production URL webhook from this initial calls user trigger. And this will need to go into here. And there's our data. That's cool. It's our dummy data. And we have this trigger momentum call. We could probably call it something different, but let's just say it's looking good. The last thing I need for the webhook and the trigger momentum call to be as follows. And must also have the web in the preferred call time function trigger replaced with this webhook. Paste. So I've just done a couple of things to tidy up the application, place the webhooks in there. Yeah, just tidy up the routing and the flow of the application. And I'm pretty happy with it. Now I think this is working great. So my last message was just, my authentication is not working properly. Please ensure that this is what happened. That fixed up the authentication process. And I said, I need the header of every page to have a logical option to either go back to the dashboard or log out. As it stands, some pages trap the users at the point they are at. For example, a logged in user on their dashboard cannot log out, and someone on their profile settings table cannot opt to go back to their dashboard. Please fix these errors in UX and ensure the entire app has a smooth user flow. And now look, we have that. Log out or back to dashboard. Cool. So I'm going to jump here. I'm going to place my phone number in here and see if this webhook triggers. Update that. And then let's go. It's initiated call. Something from here. This will be because if we jump over here to our edge functions, we can see we only have one. And this one only allows the webhook to be called at the preferred time. So then we've got the trigger only executing if those two conditions meet. So we need to fix that up. Hey there, I need a completely different trigger for the trigger momentum call, even though it has the same way. Is this possible? Okay, so here we can see we have a new edge function, this manual trigger momentum call. It doesn't have any logs yet, but if I jump back over here and select trigger momentum call and jump back over to edge function, we have a call. I'm not going to answer that because we know how the calls go. So that's it. We're done. This is our application. Woohoo! There's still more stuff you can do. I'm pretty keen to get a version of this application into the hands of social workers to help clients to track how they're doing. Already had a lot of positive feedback. So yeah, I hope you guys can use it for your use case. I'm sure that there's plenty of ways to adapt this. So yeah, have fun, enjoy, subscribe and like.